And here we are, folks. Episode 4 of Game Time Chat. I will say I did try to record earlier today and got about 40 minutes in and realized it was not recording. I don't know what happened, but we're going to give it another shot. Again, out here with another late podcast. I really wanted to get it in and out there on Monday or even Tuesday. Got pushed back today. Getting these kids to sleep, so late, it gets tough, but really want to get this out before the draft tonight. But no, we'll get right into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Lakers hire of JJ Redick. Congratulations. This is what we were rooting for. I definitely was, we'll say on his side from the beginning. Really happy for him. Obviously, he wanted the job. He got the job. And in his press conference, what really stood out to me was he said that his expectation is championship. So that says to me, we're not, obviously this isn't a rebuild. This isn't a development. You have 2 top 5, maybe top 10 players in the league right now, and LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So we do need to win. There we go with that. They need to win now. We know that Laker Nation, that crazy fan base, they expect nothing short of excellence. And even when, you do bring home a championship, there still might be some sort of criticism. I mean, the last coach they hired, not the last one, but, before he won a championship, he got fired. Went to the Western Conference Championship, the next hire. Then, we have what happened this year, fired. So I don't think that'll happen with JJ. I do think they truly want him for the future and do believe that he can help develop, the guys along and make those better decisions in crunch time when push comes to shove and, when you need a good timeout, stop the momentum. Maybe, you're up 6 late in the game, for example, and, maybe giving them that intentional foul when you're up 6. So they can only get 2 and keep that as a 2-possession game instead of, 1-possession game if they knock down a 3. Those are just some things that he did mention on his podcast. But I feel like he did well in that press conference. I would give him an A. Not everybody does well in the press conferences when they're there in front of, the press, all the pressure, especially when there have been, very public doubts and negative talk about you as a person or as your qualifications for said position, which he did joke about a couple of times about him and his lack of coaching experience. But, as I said, that lack of coaching experience, he's been around some great coaches throughout his basketball career. He played 15 years in the NBA, and that's something to really acknowledge because that is difficult to do. Not anybody can be around for that long. You've had guys who have come and gone in a few years, maybe 6 or 7, and that wasn't by choice. It was just there wasn't a place for them in the league anymore, and he found a place for himself for 15 years. After playing, of course, 4 years under Coach K at Duke. And having that scoring record also while he was out there, or not out there, but there in college, which is crucial. So the man, we know he knows how to shoot the ball. As I mentioned before, something that'll be pivotal for him will be getting those assistants, those coaches around him, getting the right guys in place who can kind of round out that bench and really be of good use for him and the team, the organization. And then the next thing is the players, some acquisitions, starting with the draft tonight. We're going to see where they go with their first pick, 17. That's really going to say a lot because I think that'll be a determining factor about what they do in free agency. One kid I really liked for them, and I'll get more into that later, but Zach Eadie. I'll get into it later as far as why I do feel like he'd be a good fit for them, but he's a center, a 7'3", 7'4" center. I think he's going to be a great player and a great asset to any team. But nonetheless, I feel like JJ Redick is ready for this job. With it being in LA, the pressure and being a head coach in the NBA. For what I know it to be, I do think he's ready. He sounded like he was ready. He loves math and analytics, and he wants to apply that to the job and in those games, in those moments. And I think that'll come in handy. Obviously he's more new school and modern as far as a player goes, and I imagine that'll be similar to his coaching style. But that is almost like a trigger word for some people in that realm of the NBA and people who watch or, cover it as far as like journalism goes. But there is a guy who also loves math and analytics, and he has implemented it, and that is Mazzulla, Coach Mazzulla from Boston, who just won a championship. So it's not frivolous. It's not baloney or, myth. Like, that stuff does work. So with him wanting to find like those edges that, give guys that little bit of extra production, whether it's like 0.5%, full, 1%, it's those little things, those little tweaks that might, like he said, he wants to get these guys to maximize their potential. That's all he effing cares about. And you heard some people that started with Keyshawn Johnson on Undisputed. He said that he felt like when he dropped the F-bomb, that he felt like it was forced. I mean, JJ, obviously he's a grown man, smart and does the communication or has that background, and, he's been in broadcasting. So I don't think that was forced. I do, it was very intentional. And I think that for me, how I perceived it with what he meant by it was just that not giving a F about what people are saying or, really, like, we'll say, proving people wrong. Because if you have, when the season starts, they lose the first game. Maybe they lose the second game too. You're going to have people up in arms, coming for him, criticizing him and the team, his small decisions. But I don't think that that's going to deter him from the vision that he has in place for the team and what he does want, or we'll say like the plan that he has. And, because there will still be 81 or 80 games left in the season. So 1 or 2 games, that's nothing in the grand scheme of things. But I feel like that's what he is saying. And so when that happens, he's not going to give a F about what those people are saying, because all he cares about is, I'm sure at that point, right, making those adjustments, finding out what works for who and, when, and then applying that and moving forward and not worrying about all of the outside noise, because ultimately it doesn't matter. And all he's going to care about is that organization and the guys in the locker room. And again, like he said, those guys maximizing their full potential. That sounds great to me. And, keywords there, sounds great. So hopefully, we all know things don't always come and go according to plan, but hopefully for the most part, his plan, it does go as he would like. And since I know Detroit is not going to win a championship this year, I hope the Lakers do. I do hope they get another one. I hope LeBron gets another one. And could you imagine if JJ Redick in his first year coaching gets a championship? The likelihood, it's the Western Conference. It's a tough conference. It's stacked, which is why it'll be so crucial for what he does this offseason, starting with tonight. A couple of other things, we want to talk about the draft tonight and some of these players, not all, because a lot of the lottery and the top 10 guys, this draft class, it's not star-studded, essentially. Of course, there's talent everywhere. These guys they're all highly talented, but it's just basically like the, top 15 guys, like they might be in the back, the bottom 10 in the first round of last year's class, or maybe even dipping into the second round. So yeah, it's not star-studded. And truthfully, the draft order and how it's chosen, I feel like there needs to be some adjustments for it, because with Detroit going 17 and 60 freaking 5, how do we end up with the 5th pick? We had 22 wins last year. 5th pick. And you have Atlanta, who's 41 and 41 with 1st overall. Washington, 35 and 47, 2nd. Houston is 3rd, but they got the pick from Brooklyn. And then you have the Spurs, 22 and 60 at 4. And I just don't understand how someone could go, we'll say 500, and end up first overall. So I feel like with my bias, there needs to be something because we're struggling. Now, do we shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes? Yes. A lot of times, yeah. But help us out a little bit, save us from ourselves. I don't know, in some way, but we'll see. We'll see what those guys do. A couple of guys I wanted to discuss coming into the draft today. I mean, we can start with Zach Eadie. Yeah, 7'4" center, about 300 pounds, 22 years old. That's a big man. He played 36 minutes last year. He averaged 36 minutes. There's 40 minutes in a college game. 36 out of 40 minutes. This 7'4", 300-pound man was out there grinding up and down the court, playing both sides. That would be so impactful and helpful for probably almost any NBA team, but especially the Lakers, who so desperately need a consistent and reliable center. AD doesn't like to play center. They need another 5, and they need a guy who can defend and who can be productive on offense. Zach Eadie is that guy. He can defend, we'll say 1 through 5, which is incredible. They put the ball on the ground and drive on him. He can keep up with them. He can move laterally, and he can cover a lot of ground. So with that being said, you have a two-way guy. We'll say he can do the dirty work. He's extremely well conditioned. Yeah, he can be of use to those Lakers. Absolutely. And probably any team that's looking for a center, really. But he was compared to Yao Ming. And that is a fantastic comparison as far as just, the respect to Yao Ming and the type of player and athlete that he was. This is somebody who I'll be excited to watch next year and see how he develops over the years to come. So Zach Eadie, we'll look out for him. A couple of other guys. Cody Williams, brother to Jalen Williams on OKC. We'll say he's a lottery pick. For me, I saw a little bit of Josh Smith. Just a little bit. 19 years old, so he's young. This kid is young. But for how young he is, he doesn't play like his age. He plays like he's a 22, 23, 24-year-old, basketball player. And I think his game will translate extremely well to the NBA. He's an incredible finisher at the rim. He has a great touch on the ball, which is hard to find and forwards. And I mean, people in general, it's hard to find that touch. It's difficult, especially when you have the defense, bodying you up, pushing you, you're trying to finish with the foul, and he can do that. And at 6'8", he can also create his own shot. He can get his own look. And there's plenty of guys make a great living and career in the NBA with just moving without the ball, playing their role, right? Lakers, guys, you need role players, but playing their role and just being in the right spot at the right time. And then, of course, defense. And he does that. He can move without the ball. He can score off the ball, but he also can play defense. He's an incredible defender, great defender. And you need that. Like, if you're going to really have great success, we see those guys, defense wins championships. That has still remained true. Was it Pat Riley who said, no rebounds, no rings? Boston busted that myth this year because the Mavericks out-rebounded them like no freaking other. But defense wins championships. That still stands true. They were playing every team. You need that. Period. This guy, Cody Williams, plays defense. He can get after it. He can move without the ball. He can handle the ball himself, and teams need that. As far as Lakers go, I don't know if he would fit in there. Detroit, I know we could use him. Atlanta, they have some guys already. Washington, they can use literally anyone. They just need bodies on that roster. They still performed better than us, but they could use them. But yeah, you need a guy who can create his own shot, who doesn't need you to do that, right? There's a few guys on the Mavericks. They cannot create their own shot. They need a playmaker for that. So that would be critical to have a guy who can do all of that. And that could be Cody Williams. Another notable mention, or not even notable mention, but somebody that a couple of guys here that I'm really excited to see. Mr. De'Ron Holmes II. This is another who I feel like is a baby Josh Smith. That's a baby Josh Smith. 6'9", 21 years old. And I'm gonna say, he's a pick and pop guy, pick and roll stud. He knows how to read the defense. So he has that IQ. Fantastic. You need guys who know what they're doing out there, who can kind of read the defense and see, what they're going to do, knowing their assignment, knowing, having that scouting report on their matchup. You need that. And he has that. Something else for him. Again, another two-way player we have here. He shot close to 40% from the 3-point line. He's 6'9", and he shot close to 40% from the 3-point line while also winning the Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year. So you have not only an elite rim protector, you also have a guy who can score on offense, who's really going to mess up some guys on that pick and roll. That high pick and roll in the NBA is killer. So if you have this kid who can sit there and drive, or hey, he can flare out and and get the pick and pop and shoot it from a high clip, that's gonna be deadly. And then again, on the other side of the ball, which is so critical, he can do that too for you. So all in all, this is a guy who I feel like, hey, he'll make a great impact on any roster. He'll be helpful for anybody, I would say, especially at that height and being able to, dribble the ball, drive in efficiently. He has the Euro step, so he has some finesse when he's going to the rim, which you don't always see with bigger guys, but he can do that. So somebody else who I'll be looking forward to, kind of watching over the next few years and seeing how he develops and what he does for the team that he gets drafted to. Another, Reed Shepard out of Kentucky. Now he's going top 5. He's going top 5 for sure. And he's being deemed as, potentially the best two-way player in the draft. That's because I just mentioned some great two-way guys, and from what I saw of them, they're nice. But yeah, this kid, he can play ball. Now it's odd because he's being compared to Derek White, who is a great defender. He makes all team defense, all NBA team defense now. But we know that Derek White can play, defense. He can, get his own shot. We know that. I feel like I saw a slightly more athletic Klay Thompson. Not egregiously more athletic, he's not jumping out the gym, but he has a relentless energy on and off the ball. When he's playing defense, he's there, he's up, he's in your face, he's smart. He has that scouting report. He has the IQ, so you need that. And did I mention he's shooting 52% from the 3-point line? That's crazy. To be able to do everything else and have that type of shooting percentage from behind the three, that is game breaking. That's game breaking. And there hasn't been a player who shot over 50% from the 3-point line who was drafted in the first round since 1989. And that was Glenn Rice Sr. This kid's going top 5. Pure shooter, beautiful jump shot this kid has. And again, he can, a 3-and-D guy, he can score at all 3 levels. He has a great mid-range, which, we know is, it was dying in the league. It seems like there's some guys bringing it back, definitely. And he's going to join that bunch. So that's someone else, he's top 5. We'll see which of these teams get him. And then someone else, and I did have to go back and watch these two play against each other, or at least their teams play against each other. And that is Dalton Knecht. I believe I said his name right. So he's out of Tennessee. This is a kid who, he, again, moves without the ball, and he does it well. You need that. You can't have guys who are just standing and being idle and just waiting for the ball to come to them so they can just dribble, right? Go one-on-one. You want a guy who can go one-on-one when necessary. But if you're not moving, then the defense, you're making the defender's job so easy if you're not moving. You see Steph Curry, he's constantly running around. They had a switch, they have the screens. The defenders are running out of energy trying to keep up with him just to try to keep the ball out of his hands. That's what this kid does. And again, 3-level scorer. He's long, he's athletic, he can finish, he can drive to the rim. He'll punch it on you. But hey, he'll also pull up from 3, another 40% shooter from 3. That's great. He averaged about 21 points per game last year, and he was rated the 3rd best scoring efficient player in the nation. And that's out of a big, big pool of guys. But that was him. So I think he'll have an immediate impact wherever he goes. A lot of teams could probably use that 3-and-D wing guy who can score at multiple levels, who can just shoot off the dribble, who can shoot off the catch, right? That's a skill. Not everybody can shoot off the dribble. Not everybody can shoot right off the catch. Not everybody can do both. Those who can, they're elite. They get to a certain point. And the one thing for him, I don't know how to affect his draft stock, but he's 23 years old. So he is a little bit older than a lot of the guys being drafted, but I do feel like it's a slightly older draft class. A lot of the guys are, when I say older, between 21 to 22, we'll say 20 to 22. So he's 23. So that's a little bit different, but not bad. And for what he'll be bringing to the table, you could say he's developed probably a bit further along than some other guys. But watching that game, Kentucky versus Tennessee, and what he was doing versus what Reed Shepard was doing. Again, Reed Shepard, right? Best 2-way player in the draft. And his defense was definitely a bit better than Dalton. You're not getting that out of Dalton with what Reed is bringing to the table, but he can still shoot lights out. He can still get to the basket, and defense wise, he's still there. He's just not Reed Shepard. But again, any team would be lucky to have this guy. And then just some, other notable mentions. You have this kid, AJ Mitchell, 22, right? He was compared to Manu Ginobili. I don't necessarily see Manu, even though love Manu his whole career, Hall of Famer, first ballot, and probably an incredible teammate he was. But for AJ Mitchell, he plays a slower game. He's really patient. Not that he is slow, but he just plays a slower game. He might be a pick and roll god. His ability to improvise and kind of go off script from what, probably the set or the play is that they're supposed to be running. It's good. And I do think you need that. You need some ability to kind of go off script and improvise and, and do those things when you are in the NBA, because there's of course like, a system in place, but, there's going to be times in each game where you just you got to do your thing, and he can. But he's patient. He has a great handle on the ball, and you do need that out of your guys. Guys who are just like a bull just running. They don't have control. That doesn't always work either. But this kid, he's in control. Ability to improvise is great, and working out of the pick and roll, which is a huge thing that guys that teams use in the NBA. That'll be extremely useful. Having that IQ. Right. Knowing when to drive, knowing when to kind of, you have your screener coming up and you just kind of blow right past it. Right. We're not even going to use it because you see there's this opening on the left with the screeners on the right. Forget that. We're going to the basket. He can do that. And that's where you have that quick step from him. So he'll help out, I'd say most teams, especially if you're looking for a guard. So he's 6'5". He's a pretty decent sized guard as opposed to Devin Carter, lottery pick. 22 years old, great defender. He's somebody who I'll put him on Curry. Curry will probably, right, Curry's going to still get his bucket, but as far as a guy who's going to make it a little bit more difficult on you, that's him, Devin Carter here, because he's going to be on you like white on rice. He's not going to stop running after you. He's going to be fighting through those screens to get over them, get under them, whatever it takes. That's the thing. He's going to do whatever it takes to stop you from scoring. Now, Steph Curry, I just use him as an example because he is elite. We know that. Elite off the ball, elite scorer, shooter, quick release, one of the quickest we've seen. But just as far as somebody who, is going to make guys' jobs more difficult on offense, that's this guy. But he's just a little bit smaller than AJ, at 6'2", 6'3". So we'll see how that kind of pans out for him. But that was just about all I had today. I'm going to try to get better at, recording these and getting them out sooner. But, we'll see what happens in the draft tonight. We got our boy Bronny. He's coming out too. I don't even want to get into the negative feedback about him, but he will be drafted tonight. He's going to have an NBA contract one way or another, whether it's with the Lakers or someone else pulls a trigger on him, even though he doesn't desire to go anywhere else. But he also doesn't necessarily have that strong desire to play with LeBron, his father. I'm all for people being an individual, and it seems like he has done that throughout his life playing basketball. He's always, from what we've probably seen on the court, right? We've been watching him for years, and from reports, he's an incredible teammate. And that is important in any team sport. And a guy who's not going to make it about them. And you can imagine the entitlement because I know we all know those entitled people, but imagine being arguably the greatest basketball player's son, what that could do to your ego as you move through life. And again, that entitlement. He could have been, just all hail me, right? Just, all holy him, but that's not him. That's not Bronny. So he seems like he's humble. Statistically, did he put up the best numbers when he was at USC? No, coming back from that heart issue, which, we wish him nothing but the best here in his future, but not the best stats, but he performed well in his NBA tryouts with the pro teams. And, that says a lot. How he will do in the league, we'll see. Will he be on a 2-way contract? Will it just be strictly, NBA? We'll see. But I will say, as far as his height goes, I wouldn't be surprised if he sprouts up a couple more inches, over the next year or two. He's still really young. Now, I'm no medical professional, but right, boys, we don't stop growing for a while. May not feel that way for everyone, myself included, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, sprouts up a couple more inches and has that change and, whatever that can do to his game. But we'll see. Wish him and all the other, potential candidates to be drafted, wish them well on their journey in the NBA, and we will be watching. Look forward to episode 5. Shout out to, my one listener in Germany. That is awesome. Thank you for supporting and tuning in. And, to everyone else who might be listening or hear this, thank you for tuning in. I look forward to episode 5, and, we'll be reporting here after the draft and going into the weekend, but that would be all, man. You guys all take care. Thanks for tuning in.